Now it's done. Is it though? Okay, we're live. All right, what's up, everybody, man? Welcome back. This is my special live stream for Patreon for August 22nd, 2019, man. We here. Everybody watching, please ask me questions on YouTube, on the live chat. Let me pop out the chat. What's going on? Let me get the music down a little bit. And we're back, man. I'm so excited to be back. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's been an interesting week. And I got some new patrons. So I wanted to say thank you to Anna. Thank you to... Oh, shit. I forgot the name, though. Let me check. Let me check real quick. I remember Anna. And then I had another girl that signed up for my Patreon. I just wanted to personally say thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you to Mirage. And thank you to my boy Tarell for being back. I really appreciate you guys. I wanted to start out with that. And today we're going to be talking about this week's art breakdown. Then I have Anna who sent me her portfolio. Then I'm going to be talking about Joshua's work because motherfucker's been hustling and I wanted to give him a critique. And then I also wanted to do a portrait sketch breakdown because I always talk about how important it is to be doing black and white studies, but I realized I never actually showed you how to do, you know, like an actual study. So that's pretty much what I'm going to cover today. And let's start out with this week's work. And by the way, I just wanted to say, I don't remember who I told, but I want you to send me your work. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be critiquing your work. Please don't be shy. You know, there's nothing to be afraid of. First of all, I have like 2 people watching me on my Patreon, so you have nothing to worry about. You know, you can kind of see I'm nervous myself. You know, this whole thing is really amateurish. You know, I'm just a guy who paints and I'm sitting here trying to help you. So if you want me to give you a critique, send me your work at angelganev6@gmail.com. I hope that's right though. So this week I did this piece that I was actually pretty happy with, but it was kind of a challenging structure with a painting process, and I kind of wanted to talk about it. And then today I'm working on this piece that I still haven't finished, but I also wanted to talk about because it's kind of an interesting piece. You know, I still haven't finished it. Hopefully after the live stream I'll have like 1 or 2 hours to finish it. You know, you can see I still haven't rendered and stuff, and it's pretty far away from being finished, but it already has like the groundwork, and I thought it would be interesting to show you, you know, kind of like what my work looks like, you know, before it's finished. And I kind of know what I want to do, but that's something that... Oh, by the way, I didn't pull up the reference though. Let me show you the reference real quick. That's something I wanted to talk about, is that even though I always talk about how it's important to know exactly what your piece needs to look like before you start, I think a lot of people don't realize that especially these more abstract backgrounds are purely, you know, kind of random, you know, because I have the same feeling when I look at professionals' work. I really feel like, man, his work was just calculated. Like, he's so perfect. Like, he thought out every little brushstroke. And I'm here to tell you that it's not like that. Like, you know, like, especially the background, it was just purely me. Like, you're gonna watch the time lapse on Sunday. It was just kind of me working out with the brush and kind of thinking about abstract shapes. So, I just wanted to tell you that if you're doing studies from like interesting pictures, don't try to copy the picture like 100%, you know. Think about what you like about this picture. And for example, this background, I really like the idea of 3 colors working together, and you can kind of see them in here. So I have purple, and I have orange, and I also have teal. So those are like the main 3 colors. And then I also have a little bit of a pink, but it's kind of like in the purplish area. And that's another thing, by the way, is I always talk about how there's, you know, you can have as many colors as you want, but there's always needs to be one main color that you can, you know, sort of abuse. And then you have kind of like the other ones just to kind of like put there as an interesting effect. So in here, you can kind of see the pink and the purple being the main color, and then you have a little bit of an orange, you know, in the lights, and then you have a little bit of a teal, right? So that's kind of like what I was thinking about before I started. Is the thing that I liked about this picture. Oh, hello Nina, hi Charming, hello to you too, baby. So yeah, that's what I was thinking before I started. I was thinking about what do I like about this picture? And I really like the light, the in the background, and I really like the color combination. So I was thinking, how can I reproduce the same effect without actually adding so many, so many details? And I'm gonna show you the process over here that I started out with. And I always start out, before I used to start. Oh, hello, Marfa. Oh, okay. It's always funny when people write me comments in the live stream, man. Really glad to have you guys. So I used to sketch a lot with the sketch brush, but then I realized I want something a little bit more hard. So I recently developed this new brush that's called the ink brush. So if you still haven't downloaded my new brushes, you can go to aganef.com/brushes. So this is kind of like the rough sketch that I created with the ink brush. And then I started out a new layer. I dropped the opacity, and I created a more finished line art. So this is kind of like the, oh, I can open them. Let me open them side to side. So this is kind of like the rough sketch, and then on top I have the detailed sketch, and you can kind of see the proportions. Everything is figured out in this sketch. And don't get scared, by the way, if you can kind of like the old one better. You like the rough one better, because there's a lot more expression in it. There's just a lot more roughness and a lot more energy. And whenever you kind of like make a detailed sketch, you lose a lot of that. So don't be afraid, but kind of like keep that in mind and use it, afterwards when you're adding the colors. So after I did this, what's happening with my voice though? So after I did this line art, I broke down the shapes. So I have a different shape for the skin, a different shape for the hair, the jacket, and then her clothes, right? And then one for the background. And it was a really interesting approach, because normally whenever I do like full characters, I either have them like really simple, or I have them super painterly. But the background is mostly, it's not abstract, because until now I was kind of afraid to kind of combine abstract backgrounds with like simplified characters. So this is kind of like a new thing for me as well. So I was kind of like afraid how to do that. And I wanted to kind of show you the process. But really, one thing that you need to know before you start is you don't need to know like kind of like where things are gonna be, but the one thing is kind of like what style you're gonna be working in. And that's why I like the comparison of this week, because I have this artwork, which is like a really simplified background with like a very simple rendering, and then I have this super abstractish um, background right next to it. So the thought process about the clothes and the characters is pretty much the same, but it's all about how are you gonna make this character work with the background, because that's another thing is you can't just add like a random background that has nothing to do with the character. You have to make it work. And something that you can kind of see in good references is you see a lot of the teal in the background, and you see a lot of the teal in the clothes, in the glasses. And whenever you have the same color in the both in the character and the background, that just kind of connects them, and it just makes you recognize that they're coming from the same world, right? And with this artwork, and another thing, by the way, because this artwork, I actually wanted to add some subtitles, because that's been a really popular thing on Instagram lately. So I just decided that I want to focus more on the storytelling. So before I start, even though those are kind of like similar artworks, because they both have like a character, like a stylized character with glasses, I feel like they're completely different as to what they represent, right? So the left artwork is more of a design, it's more about aesthetics, right? And whenever I saw the reference, let me open up the reference so I can show it to you. So this is kind of like the reference I saw, right? And even though it had a really complicated background, all I was thinking about is just adding like a simple background to the back and just making her t-shirt say something interesting, right? So the idea of this artwork is about more about the shirt and kind of like the simplistic design of the background, and kind of like the character coming out of the background, kind of popping. And for this one, it's more about storytelling and just crazy colors working together. So I knew before I started, I didn't know any shapes, I didn't know anything, but I had that idea in my mind. And I just wanted to tell you that, it's not important to know exactly what colors are you using and all of these things, but as woo woo as it sounds, you actually need to know what you're trying to kind of represent with this artwork. Even if it's a little study, you can kind of see I'm both working with references with this reference. I have, for both of these artworks, I had references, right? And even though they're kind of similar, I went totally different ways, with the artwork itself. Like with this one, I decided it's more about the lights and the crazy colors and kind of like more about it will look good with the subtitles. And for this one, I really like the pose of the clothes, and I was thinking it can be kind of like a more stylized designish view, right? So those are some of the things that I was thinking about before I even started, right? So because of that, you can kind of see how the process, even though it's kind of similar, at some point it becomes a lot different. So by the way, let me show you this. I have a little thumbnail for this artwork, the one with the sweater. I started out with a rough sketch, the same way I started out with this, but you can kind of see how this one was a lot more detailed. Like this was like a lot more, I already knew how exactly I want the character to look. And this one, because the pose was so kind of simple, like you can see in this one there's a lot more folds and a lot more details to kind of represent the character. But in this one, because there's a lot of straight lines, you really need to nail down the pose. So I was really experimenting. I think if you watch the time lapse, I think I sketched that pose like 3 or 4 times because it was just so complicated. And by the way, that's a great advice for beginners is whenever you're trying to do characters, make sure that you're drawing like more extreme poses. Like don't go with the straightforward poses, because even though they look easier, it's kind of hard for you to represent that anatomy and structure, because he's just standing there and you can make it interesting. So go for more extreme ones, and then when you're more advanced, you can go more into the subtle ones. So this is kind of like the rough sketch that I did, and then I did a thumbnail. So whenever I try to stylize different things and I'm not copying the background and I'm kind of like doing different shapes, I always do a little thumbnail just to kind of like see what this artwork is about. So even though in the end I added all these beautiful gradients in the back, I didn't even know, by the way, in the thumbnail what I wanted the shirt to say, right? And there's even though there's a lot of rendering and stuff, you can kind of see how the thumbnail is pretty much the same as the final. And it's funny because the thumbnail was literally like, I think 20 minutes, and then this one is like 4 hours. So I really have the basic idea in my head before I even start. And a couple of interesting things that I wanted to mention is I knew that I wanted the background to be red, but a major factor was that I wanted the cast shadow, the drop shadow, to be really purple, right? And that just makes everything a lot more interesting, because even though it's a little shape, it kind of shows, I don't know, I just kind of feel like it connects. You can even see it in here. It kind of connects the blue and the red, because she's wearing such a bluish. Oh, Nina says, Angel, do you think you can post a slower video showing the process more slowly as a foundation for any work, like the main step in the process? Yeah, I really want to, but what's the problem? The problem is Patreon doesn't allow me to post files that are bigger than 200 megabytes. So I have the raw file, which is like 3 hours, but if I try to post it on Patreon, it doesn't allow me because it's way too big. And I'm trying to compress it, but it says that it's way too big. You know what? I'm gonna search online how I can compress files even more. I'm using this app called Handbrake, and it's actually compressing the files, but I guess it's not enough. So if anybody knows that, you can kind of like give me advice. But I don't have any problem though. I can show you even now. I have like raw files. Let me show you real quick. I have raw files that are like, actually this one is 8 minutes. It's so funny. I was like, man, I'm gonna show you like 3-hour videos, and then I pull up one. You're so fast, man. Oh, thank you, Nina. I really appreciate it. So this is kind of like 1 hour and 50 minutes, and I wasted a lot of time on this one because it was it had a really kind of complicated pose. Nina says, is it possible to send it for your Patreon? Is it possible to send it for your Patreon? Oh, what do you mean exactly though? I don't get that question. Do you mean can I send it to you elsewhere, or the problem is the file, like this file alone, this video is 4 GB, so I can't really send that anywhere. And then when I try to compress it, I can get it down to like 1 GB, but it's still way too big. So I try to make it like 20-30 minutes via Dropbox. Well, yeah, I think I can do Dropbox. Maybe I can do like Google Drive or something, but I think I'm just gonna find something. You know what? I need to write this down though, because I'm gonna forget. Let me write it down. Find an app that makes app um, makes compresses compress. Nina says people who already are members. Do you know we transfer this server has a space of about 2 GB and the link online for about 7 days. You can set it the link to your patrons if you want to send bigger files. Oh, that's a great idea though. Yeah, I can definitely do that. You know what? I think I'm gonna start doing that. Wait a minute. My music went out. Okay. I hear you. We can start doing that. So, maybe maybe I can post. Okay, first of all, I'm gonna find an app that can kind of compress the files, and if it doesn't work, I'm gonna start sending them with transfer. But how fast do you want the videos to be, guys? Because like honestly, the videos are gonna be like 4 hours. Like for example, this one is gonna be 4 hours, and it's literally like I think it's just gonna be kind of boring. Mirage says maybe when you separate the video in 2 parts, so you can send the video via transfer because it supports 2 GB. Okay, that's good advice. It'll be really so useful. Okay, I'm glad. I'm gonna send you that. Okay. The problem is, I don't. I think people are gonna kind of get bored if I send like 4 hour videos. Do you want me to? Okay. Do you want the link? Okay, sure. Send me the link. Is the link for the website? You mean? We transfer. I think I've used it before though. Let me Google it real fast. We transfer. Oh, I know why my music stopped by the way, because I keep opening this file and I'm like, wait, what happens with my music? Um, oh yeah, okay. Send up to 20 GB. Wow. Oh, that's the plus version. Okay, I'm definitely gonna use that. And let me write it down as well. So, do you guys want me to at least speed it up like 2 or 3 times? Because I'm just, you know what I'm afraid of? We transfer. I'm really afraid of people just getting kind of bored with the content I produce. Oh, it's totally okay, Mirage. Um, I'm just kind of afraid that people are gonna get bored if I keep sending 4 hour videos. So maybe I can kind of like speed it up like 3-4 times. So it will be like maybe like an hour or something. Um, but you can kind of, okay. I'm definitely gonna do that. Okay, I definitely gonna do that. I just kind of wanted to show you like in the video. It's really like I just wanted to kind of give you some encouragement because I remember what it is when I was a beginner. Like I used to watch all these professional artists paint, and I was like, man, they're just so fast. And then I realized, well, they actually speeded up like literally like 1,000%. So even though I don't really make a lot of mistakes, I still like look at that shit. Like I literally painted 5 minutes. It took me to paint this little ass circle, right? So it's a lot of patience. So don't rush it. And another thing that you kind of notice in the video, by the way, is kind of like how I'm fucking around with the colors a lot. So even though I know this sweater want let me show you this. So even though I want this sweater to be kind of like blue and I want the background to be red, look at how weird of a blue that was and how weird of a red that was in the background. And then in the final, I changed it so much, right? Like I had a gradient, like the red is different, the blue is different. So definitely take your time and just build up the colors. Mirage says, yeah, for the website, you can drag and drop the files. It's pretty simple. Okay. For a beginner, it's very difficult to cope with the drawing process. Yeah, I totally agree. I think I'm gonna do like a thing. Okay. I'm grateful, man. I think I was just so afraid that you guys are not just gonna watch like a 4 hour video, so I just kind of wanted to compress them, and the Patreon thing doesn't allow bigger files. But okay, I'm definitely gonna try to use the WeTransfer thing. I have your email, so definitely gonna do that. Let me just play the music and I can continue with that other shit. Hey, but that was so cool though, man. I love the feedback shit. Like, cause I believe so much that whatever you're doing, you can always get better. But if you don't really have the feedback, you can't really get better. So you know what? You're learning. I'm learning. This what it is. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, the thing about these two artworks. Wait, I opened way too many files though. So yeah, it was just an interesting kind of thing between how different of a process they have, even though the references look so familiar. You know, this one again was a lot more about detail, and this one was more about kind of like um, abstract shapes and colors. So I forgot what else what I was gonna say, but oh yeah, I remember is that whenever you try to shade and render, you can kind of see how. Let me close the thumbnail though. You can kind of see my process is first of all, I'll always block out the shape and I'll go with a brick brush and just lay all of these interesting color dynamics. You know, you can kind of see all of these interesting colors with the brick brush, and then I'll always start with like basic shadows, you know, like with the brick brush again. And something that I've kind of been trying to develop lately is really showing a lot with little information as possible. So in the past, I used to be like, man, I wanted to create all of these interesting rendering and stuff, but now I realize it's actually more beautiful if you try to bring it back and with less rendering show more information. Mirage says, Angel, may I ask, do you work with the saturation and everything while you're in the drawing? Because I never understand how the colors can pop so much without filters and stuff. Yeah, that's a great question. So something that I do, let me show you. So something that I do real often, actually throughout the whole painting is, I even did it with this one. Wait, where's it? Oh yeah. I even did it with this one. So actually, you know what? It would be better if I talk about it in the steps. So as I said, as I'm first starting out, I always start out with just blocking the main colors. So a couple of things that I know is that I want the background to be red, I want the sweater to be blue, and I want to have like bright colors in the glasses. So that's the first thing I start. And the thing is, you can't really have like very saturated and popping colors in the beginning because they're just gonna look awkward. So something that I always talk about is this idea that you need to be kind of like building up your color, right? So I always like, for example, I know these pens need to be black, but you can kind of see how I started out with these brown, because if you start out with black, you won't have any rendering, you won't have any texture, you won't have anything. So actually the secret to good color and beautiful texture is actually starting out with a less saturated color, so you can kind of like build it up. And I mean, not like not so desaturated that it actually looks awful. But another thing, because I remember that um I did this tutorial on YouTube this week, and I said the exact opposite thing. I said how you should always start with the most saturated color in the beginning. So there's a big difference. You kind of have to make a you have to make a distinction between the two styles. So in this style, which I like to call my messy, wait, let me open it again. So I have completely different styles, and this one is more about kind of like starting out directly with painting. So if I'm working in this style, to answer your question, Mirage, if I'm working in this style, which is kind of like the messy painting technique, I actually start with more saturated colors that I actually finish. And you can kind of see how in the beginning and in the end, it's pretty much the same color. Like it just has more contrast. And a thing that I do is I'm constantly, as I'm working on the color, I'm constantly using hue and saturation, and I'm constantly using levels. So if I'm working on this painting, let's say, I'll constantly go with the even when I'm rendering, I'll go Control H. I think it's Control B if you're using the standard approaches. So I'll constantly bump up the contrast and I'll bump up the brightness as I'm going. And as I'll do that, I'll kind of go Control Z, and I'll kind of like, does that look better though? It does, right? So, but I'll kind of save the best for last, and I've done a video about this before. And by the way, you can check, I think if you're assigned to my email list, there's this great video that I did on how to color correct your paintings. But I'm gonna do a real extended tutorial in the future. But something to show you in here, let me move my face though. Something that's called gradient map. So if you go into the little box in here with the circle, you press gradient map, and you press hard mix, right? So you press hard mix, and if you're using my gradient maps that I have on YouTube on how to set up your Photoshop, you just pick one of them, you drop the opacity, and you can kind of see how it creates all of these beautiful textures and colors. So that's a real neat secret that I'll kind of use after I'm done with the rendering. And look at that, that's just purely from the gradient map. It's kind of like building more contrast with the colors. But this is something that, you know, I do a lot of other things as well. Another thing I'll do is selective color. So if you go right here in the circle, there's this called thing selective color. So you can go through all of the colors and actually bump up not only the saturation, but actually add more color. So if you go to the reds, you can actually add more reds to the reds, and you can add like more magenta or more blue or more yellow. And actually, even though it says yellow, the way that it works is if you add more yellow to yellow, it becomes more yellow, obviously. But if you take yellow, it actually becomes more blue. So knowing that, you can go through every single one of these colors up here in the menu. And let's say you go to the green. Actually, is there any green in this? Because I think this, okay, let's go to the magentas. So if you go to the magentas and you're like, I want to make all of the magentas a lot more saturated and popping, what you're gonna do is you're gonna add more red, which means you're gonna add less cyan, and then you're gonna make them a little bit colder, and you're gonna add more magenta, right? So you're adding more magenta to the magenta, and that way it becomes more saturated. So look at that. That's just purely from the selective color. And those are kind of like the two things that I use is selective color and hard mix, right, with the gradient maps. So that's kind of like it creates all of these beautiful textures you can see kind of here in the background, and kind of like makes everything more saturated. But really, I just wanted to say that if you're still kind of like in this beginner intermediate stage, I don't think you should even rely on these kind of like quote unquote tricks. Like, I mean, it's cool to know them and kind of experiment with them, but I really think it's important for you to develop the skills of creating interesting colors as you're kind of working. Martha says, Angel, where to get gradients like yours? So when you sign up for my Patreon, right? I think I sent you on your email or a personal message. I sent you this video, a 40-minute video on how to set up your Photoshop like mine. So in that video, you go to the description, I talk about my gradients, and you can download my gradients, my actions, and all of these. So Marfa, you can go to the email, and you know what, if you don't see that video, write me a personal message on Patreon, and I'm gonna send you the video. And there's like a link to my Google Drive, and you can click there and download the gradients. But really, they're kind of like easily built, you know. Like a couple of things to keep in mind is to usually stay in the same wait, let me show you how you can build gradients. So as you kind of like, you have the default gradient, so you just kind of pick a color, and then you pick in the middle, and you just add a new color, right? And you just fuck around with the sliders. And a rule that you have to keep in mind is you're going from light to dark, so don't add a darker color after a lighter color, right? Because that would just kind of fuck up the painting. So it's really easy to fuck it up, but you know, you can just use mine, you know. And if anybody has a problem, you can write me a personal message on Patreon, and I'm gonna send you the video. Mirage says, this is super helpful, Angel, thank you. By the way, how do you also keep the quality so good? When I work with saturation and everything, my quality is so blurry and such shit quality. That's a good question. Well, as do you mean like the sharpness of the painting, or do you mean like the or like the muddiness of the color? Because if it's the sharpness, and because I suck so hard at Photoshop, but how the heck the blending on PS works? Okay, that's a good question. So as you're kind of going, first of all, there's two things. If your quality looks blurry, so first thing, it might be that your colors are being mudded themselves because you don't know how to render. And then the other thing is you're using soft brushes. So the way to fix the soft brushes one is you need to be using Marfa says, thank you, I cannot find the letter in which the gradients were. Okay, you know what, I'm gonna send them to you right now. Google Drive. I think my shortcuts in my Google Drive right now. Just a minute, guys. I'm sorry. I just wanted to show you that. Photoshop goodies. Here they are. Little bitches. Share. How do you share that? Okay. Get shareable link. I think here it is. Okay, so here I'm gonna post it in the chat. I don't know if you can click on the oh yeah, I think you can click on the link. So Marfa, you can just click on the link and it will take you to my Google Drive, and you can download it like a zip file, and then you can like unzip it. So let me know if that works, by the way. So back to what Mirage says. By the way, I love this, man. I love you guys asking questions. Shit, I'm such an attention whore. I love when people are asking me questions because it's like I can finally be helpful. So the thing that if your painting looks blurry, something that you have to do a lot is, especially when you're first starting out, is use more hard brushes. So you actually rarely see me using, even though I have this airbrush, I use it mostly for just kind of like adding effects and color dodge. But mostly I'm working with the brick and the hard round brush. So these are like kind of like my main two brushes. And really, if you're first starting out, by the way, Mirage, I don't even, you know what? Marfa says, thanks, you're welcome, baby. Mirage, I think you were the person that said you were too shy to send me your work. So please send me your work. I love for you to, you know what? I won't even add it in the live stream if you don't want me. I'm just going to write you a little letter. I kind of need to see your work so I can give you the best advice. But really, the two things is use harder brushes. And then for the muddiness, even though I know you wanna render, but as you're first starting out, you can kind of see what Joshua is one of my patrons for the mentorship, and I'm kind of like giving him exercises to learn more about portraits. And the best exercise I actually wanted to show you today, but I don't think we'll have time, is black and white portraits. So a really important thing before you even get into color is to learn how to paint in black and white. So something that a lot of people don't understand is that rendering and blending is actually a skill in itself. So you can kind of see how Joshua, I don't think I had like his older work, but not only his structure has gotten better, but also his lighting, also his rendering, like everything. And the way to get better fast is to really eliminate all of the things that you don't understand and just learn things one by one. So if you're a complete beginner and you don't understand anything, really the way to go is black and white studies. So if you wanna learn portraits, or if you wanna learn characters, really the start is finding good references and doing kind of like these quick sketches, which are really just you doing. Let me show you Joshua. Yeah. So finding references and doing these structure sketches that I've talked before, planes of the head, and then just doing some shading on top. So you can kind of see how Joshua said he did that in 30 minutes. So I would actually recommend you to learn how to blend with black and white first before you get into the color. And I know what you mean by muddy colors and kind of like everything being soft. And that's a problem because you can kind of see my art where I'm using a lot of colors, a lot of complicated things, and you can try to imitate me, but it actually won't really work the same effect because you don't understand and you don't have that those skills to actually create interesting colors and blend them together. So the way to go is to really understand how to paint in black and white, to understand structure and form, and then slowly start doing studies. And I talked about this last time, and I actually wanted to show you Joshua's improvement because he's going crazy right now. He did this still life. Let me just, oh yeah, here it is. So after you get more into black and white paintings and stuff, the best way to learn about color is really still lives. You can kind of learn them from photos or even like objects in front of you. This is what I told Joshua to do. So he did this beautiful still life with two apples, and it's really just it's amazing, right? Like you can kind of see how it has all of the basic structure things. Like it has hard edges, it has soft edges, like the core shadow, the reflective light. The only critique I have, by the way, and I wrote it in here, um, Joshua, that it has great structure. The structure is getting better. You can kind of see how I recommended him to actually break down the apples in planes. So even though the apple is a circular object, even though it's like a sphere, what I told Joshua to do, and I'm so glad he took my advice, is to actually break down the apple in different planes. So you can kind of see, even though it's circular, you can kind of see these big ass planes, right? And really treat it like a Rubik's Cube. Mirage says, okay, I'll go for it with black and white. Can we send you traditional work as well? Thank you once again so much, Angel. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, you can send me traditional work. You can send me any work you want to, and I'll critique it for you. And send it on my email, and then next week I'm gonna do a little critique for you. So yeah, that's pretty much the way to go, is learn how to do it in black and white, and then move to still life to understand the color, and then go back to portraits and apply the color. And by the way, now that we're on the subject, I wanted to kind of mention Joshua's work, to kind of get it over with. And he's definitely getting better, man. I can sense that about Joshua. I think we're really close to getting into color portraits. Kind of like what I wanted to show you about Joshua's work is like these two different studies, and kind of like compare them, because this one is really just, it's masterful. Like this is exactly what I mean when I'm telling you to do black and white studies, is really break down the planes and study how light hits. And this one, even though he tried to do the same effect, the reason why it didn't work so well is because he had a shitty reference. And that's something that I recommend everybody. Oh, gorgeous, thanks, boo. You're welcome. So something I always talk about is finding good ass reference. So even though this reference is great for studying the kind of like the structure, and it's great, you can kind of see the proportions, the nose is amazing, the mouth is amazing, it's not the best for lightning. So what Joshua did for this portrait in particular, what he did wrong is he tried to treat it the same way that he tried to treat this portrait. So this one, because it has beautiful lightning, it has like all of the planes are kind of like structured out. It was a lot easier for him to break it down. But this one, it was kind of like, you can kind of see how it has all these weird brush strokes. I don't even know what's happening here. It looks like he got his nose broken. So something that I recommend you do is look for great references. And this is a reference that I think I found on my mentorship while I was talking to somebody, or I don't even know where I found it, but go to Pinterest, write male portrait, and just start searching and look at how great this reference is, because it has everything that you want. It has beautiful structure, it has beautiful lightning, proportions are amazing. So I'm sure that if Joshua did this rendering on this phase, it will look a lot better. So kind of like a couple of critiques for Joshua. Make sure that you're working for better references. And another thing I wanted to mention, please, I wrote him in the email, but I still wanted to mention that. Oh, by the way, he found out that that reference was colored. I didn't know that. Oh, no, that's great. So when you're working with reference, if you're painting in black and white, you can actually make the reference black and white, so you can make it easier. And the way you can do that is you open the hue and saturation and you just drop the saturation from here, or you can like drop the where was it? Yeah, drop a black and white in here, right? So that's a great thing to do. And I wanted to mention to Joshua, I know I wrote that in the email, but please, man, start adding what do you even call those? Retinas. Start adding retinas. The motherfuckers looking like zombies in here. He did a couple of studies and they're great, but they don't have retinas in them. I don't know why. Like, look at this girl. And actually, a good practice to do is always, when you're drawing eyes, to always be thinking them as a bow. And I've mentioned that before because they're really like 3D objects. And even though irises and retinas, is it called an iris or a retina? I don't know. An iris. Even though irises, they don't really have any structure to them. They're just kind of like there, like they're on top. Even though they don't have any structure, it actually makes a lot of a difference, because you can kind of see this eye in here. it has when you don't have the iris, you can make a lot of different proportional mistakes. If you actually hit the iris in here, you're actually gonna notice how weird this eye looks, right? Actually, it needs a lot more space. It actually needs to be a lot bigger, like it's actually coming in here, right? But if you didn't have the iris, you weren't going to notice that. Like look at that before and after, right? Like the whole eye needed to move to the side, and it's the same for this one. If you actually had the iris, and I think, I think you already knew that, but for everybody out there, it's really important, especially for eyes. Think about them as a bow with eyelids just kind of going on top of the eyeball and really just being in 3D space. And then on top of the eyeball, you have the irises, and the irises are so important because they're really showing where the head is facing, and where the eyes are looking. And a great trick that you can kind of do is, another thing why they're so important is because even though the eye is like a bow, it's not a perfect bow, but it's actually a little bit like a sphere. So whenever you're looking at a different direction, actually the whole eyelid is gonna change. And a lot of people don't understand that, is that, let's say you have this eye in here. If you have this eye, if it's looking to this direction, actually the eye is gonna push this way. It's actually gonna push this way the whole structure. And if you let me make this. Let me make this red so it's gonna be easier to understand. So if it's looking that way, actually the whole eyelid is gonna move that way. And if the eye is going the other way, that way, actually the eyelid, this plane is gonna be a lot bigger than this one, because the eye is moving, so the eyelid has to move with it, right? So if you don't have eyelids, you don't even know where you need your eyelids to be facing, right? Did I say eyelid or iris? I don't know. Whatever. Just focus on painting the iris, and really think about the iris as being on top of the bow, and then the eyelid really just being on top of both of them, and really just covering the eye, So I hope that helps with the eyes. And yeah, that's pretty much my critique for Joshua. He's doing great. I told him in the email is make sure that you do a couple of more rendered pieces. So I want you to really push yourself. If you're watching this, Joshua, push yourself to render more of the portrait, so we can really figure out exactly where your mistakes are. So I want you to find a beautiful reference like this one. You can even take this one, for example, and try to paint it as best as you can. And then I'm gonna give you critique on that, and then maybe like next month, because it's the end of the month, so that's like after 10 days, we can start doing like color portraits, and that's gonna be super interesting. So really, that's the way to go, guys, is black and white portraits, structure, and then after you know that, still lifes, and then color portraits, just so you can kind of like combine the two skills. So anyway, that's about this week's art. And I'm gonna definitely take your advice and send you that work. And let's see, I talked about Joshua's work. Yeah, let's talk about Anna's portfolio, because we have 15 minutes, and I really wanted to do a portrait breakdown, but I'm sorry, I kind of been answering some questions and stuff. Maybe I can do it next time, but I'm still kind of trying to figure out. Again, I'm kind of like a real beginner in this live stream shit. I really am trying to provide the best value I can, but I'm still trying to getting confused about what you guys want me to see. So make sure you send me questions. You tell me what you want me to live stream. I think that's like a good way to go, is first of all talk about this week's art, kind of like breaking it down, and then doing some critiques, and then maybe in the end I can like draw something and kind of like give you little notes. But I really want this to be kind of like what you call it there, like a team. Like I really want us to work together. I don't want to just be sitting here and doing endless tutorials. Like I really want to see your art and kind of give you critiques and work with you, right? So make sure you guys send me your artworks on angelganif6@gmail.com again. So I have this new patron called Anna, and I told her to send me her portfolio, and here it is. She said that she's doing a lot of mixed media, which I'm totally fine with. And she said she hasn't done any portraits before, but she actually wants to get into them, which hopefully that will help her the previous advice that I gave her with kind of like doing the structural sketches and all that. So she has actually two different PDFs, and really she has a lot of different a lot of different media, man. Like I'm almost jealous because like she's a master at markers. She's really good with watercolor. Like look at that, that's fucking amazing. Holy shit, I don't think I've ever drawn with watercolor, but I do want to though. Um, Chris Pauline says, "Hey Angel, Christine here. Can I send your artwork from the week homework study to you for these live streams?" Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm doing, Christine. Send me all your work, and I can give you the critique. Actually, I still have like 10 minutes on this live stream, so maybe we can even talk about it today. So if you send it in the next 5 6 minutes, I can even talk about it today. Just hit me up on the email and let me know when you send it. So Anna, really, she understands something that really made something that fucking made me to go wow. Actually, I got so wow that I couldn't even talk. Is her understanding of color, and I wanted to show you that when you're working, when an object is hit with sunlight, you kind of see how it has all of these warm lightning. So you can kind of see how she represented it with this orange. But then because the oh, Christine says, okay, we'll do. Okay, perfect. Let me know when you send the email. And when something is hit with sunlight, the shadows are actually going to be super cold because you have the sky reflecting all of that light, and you have a lot of that blue into the shadows. So something that that I give my respect to Anna, she had with and that was done with a marker, which is even harder. She actually drew all of the shadows with this bluish color, and it looks amazing. So a great advice for beginners: if you're working with something that's hit with sunlight, always make the light a lot more warmer. And then you know what, let me open that in Photoshop because I wanted to show you something. Even though Marfa says thanks bro. Oh wait, so Marfa is Anna? I got confused here. Actually, that makes a lot more sense because when I read the question from Marfa, I was like, do I have a patron called Marfa? I'm confused. So I'm guessing Marfa is Anna. So something that I wanted to show you guys is even though this looks super blue, you know, it looks like this saturated crazy blue. If you actually open it in Photoshop, you'll notice that it has 5 points in saturation. So because this is such of an orange kind of yellowish tint, when you put even like a gray, oh, okay, so Marfa is really Anna. Well, hello Anna. When you have such a strong yellow, when you put even a desaturated blue next to it, it looks super blue. So that's something to keep in mind. Sometimes you can even do it. Let me show you something, by the way. So sometimes you can even do it with, let's say this was hit, like you had like a little bow. Let me make it darker though. So let's say you have this bow and it was hit with warm sunlight. So it's actually gonna have this really strong, warm. That's probably too yellow. Warm highlights, and then for the shadows, I mean only if it's outside, of course. If it's outside, it's gonna have these bluish shadows. But something that's interesting is you can kind of notice I'm still drawing with red over here, but because it's so desaturated, it actually looks super blue. So I'll actually, for the shadow, I'll add a little bit of red, and I'll go a little bit into the blue, but I won't press hard, right? Like I'll just press a little bit. And then if you go into that color again, even though I just added blue, because I wasn't pressing so hard and the colors mixed together, you can kind of see how it still is red. So that's a great, Marfa says, Marfa is my sub-personality. Okay, it sounds cool. So that's just something to keep in mind, is even though it needs to be blue, don't go overboard with it. Don't go in there with a super saturated blue. Look how beautiful Anna did it. It's just really subtle with the blue. So she has beautiful watercolors. She's really great at kind of like just blending, and especially with the watercolor. Holy shit. Christine says, I send it, not sure if it gets through. Tried using airdrop as the file is big. Okay, let me see. Guys, don't look at my emails right now. I'm gonna open my emails real quick. Nora sent me a message. Anna sent me a message. Oh, I don't see it, Christine. Are you sure you send it to angelganf6@gmail.com though? Can you try again, please? Um, let me talk about Anna's work though. I'm sorry. I'm kind of going from thing to thing. So the thing that I wanted to say about Anna is even though she has this beautiful structure, like look at this horse, like she really understands form, like even in these hands here, beautiful structure, beautiful form. I think she hasn't drawn enough portraits. You can kind of see that the portraits are kind of warped and stuff. So I feel like you definitely have the potential. Like look at these feet. It's so it's so weird because you see a lot of people drawing portraits for the longest time ever, and then they try drawing feet or hands and they really suck at it, you know. And I feel like you kind of have the opposite effect. So I feel like Anna, it's not because you can't draw right now. I feel like you really can if you look at the horse. Like look at this horse, holy shit! Like you can even see the planes and stuff. Like the colors are amazing, the lighting is great. I think you just didn't push yourself to paint enough portraits. So an advice for you and a critique for you is get references. Get as many references as you can. I've showed you before. I have a reference folder. So if you go into Pinterest, you download as many different references as possible, and you really just start copying them, you know, the same way I showed you. First you start with black and white, and you really study the same way you study this arm. Look at how anatomically correct this is. Like it has structure, it's just beautiful. And then you have the face, which is kind of like it looks kind of, it's kind of like broken. Okay, not to hurt your feelings, but really you have the potential. I just feel like you need to push yourself. Even with landscapes, this one is kind of weird, but the other one from this one was really amazing. Let me show it to you guys. Yeah, this one is really amazing. So if you want to study more about portraits, because I remember you said in the email, you said, Angel, I want to start learning more about portraits like you. Really, the way to go is studies. So I actually want you to push yourself and then send me your work, and then we're gonna talk about it, like hopefully next week or the week after that, and I can give you like different advice and stuff, and yeah, we can go from there. But really, look at this color though. The blending is amazing. Like it's so funny how your horse eye looks better than your human eye. Like look at how more structural. And really, guys, when I'm talking about structure, this is what I mean. Like look at how this eye has like planes, right? Like you can kind of see the eyelid on top. You can see the cornea. Not the cornea. What was it called? The teardrop. You can see the teardrop. You can see the highlights. Like it's just beautiful. And then you drew the portrait eye, and it has none of that. Like it was really just kind of like, but maybe you drew it later. Maybe this was like an old work, but not to critique you too much though. Again, you're doing great. I just feel like, you know, you need more studies. Okay. Anna says that's good. I realized I'll use the reference. I did this with horses because I love horses very much. Okay, that's totally cool. I mean, nobody says you even have to draw portraits. Like if you like horses, you can just draw horses. Have you tried any digital painting, by the way, Anna? I think that would be a great thing for you. Is maybe experiment with that, because you're so good with traditional. Like this is some crazy watercolor work. Like look at these reflections. Oh my god. I feel like you can kind of benefit with the digital a little bit. But yeah, just do more studies of portraits. You definitely have the potential. I just kind of want you to push yourself in that. Like even the holy shit, even the still life, like it has beautiful. Oh, is that the watercolor though? It just I hate to see that. Like just the paint's kind of dripping and shit. It always makes me sad. Mirage says, so I'm a bit of scared to use references again, actually. That's why I started to get more and more with landscapes and stuff. Okay, can you elaborate on that? Why do you think you get scared with using references? Do you think you're kind of just judging yourself that it doesn't look like the reference, or is it something else? Because really, like, I don't think there's anything scary with using references. Like the best way to learn is references, um, because really just there's nothing better than nature. Anna says you're right. The horse I painted this year, girls I painted is in 2010. Oh, that makes more sense. Yeah, there's a lot more structure in the horse. That's so weird though. You've been painting for 9 years. Holy shit, dude. No wonder you're so good. Like I've been low key painting for 7 years. You should be the one teaching me, not the opposite. Christine says, okay, it all messed up, but I managed to send one screenshot of one of the studies. Okay, let's see one of the screenshots. Christine, don't be looking at my emails. Test. Okay, that's pretty good. Let me see the other. Christine sent me another one. Oh yeah, it's just the same. Let me open that in a new file. Um, so Christine recently signed up for my mentorship tier, and we've been talking. We talked last week, and I kind of like gave her the same exercise. I kind of went through some of her work, and I told her exactly what she needs to be doing, and really this exercise that I gave her, I give it to everybody, man. It really just that's the way to start. So you get the reference. You have to read Andrew Loomis. He talks a lot about the rhythm lines. You break down the reference, and then next to the on the side, you just do your own sketch, right? Let's see. So you broke down the reference really good. Um, the sketch is pretty good. I just want you to hopefully you did. Oh, let's see. There's a comment. Mirage says no because the person I took the ref though wasn't okay with using the reference. I just don't want any stupid messages going on. Oh yeah, yeah. I get you. I definitely get a lot of people kind of like, well, why are you using my photos? But generally, I feel like if you know where you're getting the reference, so if you go to Instagram and you actually credit the people, you're like, you know what, I took this reference from this, so from so and so, you can actually get away with it. So that's something that I recommend to you is remember where you get a reference and then just credit the people. And otherwise, I think there's amazing websites. I can't think of any right now because I don't really use them, but I know there's a lot of websites that have copy-free images, so you can actually go there and they're all for like use for like open use. But really Pinterest, man, like I don't think people, like especially photographers, they will be happy if you actually credit them because you give them more followers. So if you actually check the people's profile, unless it says don't use my artwork, I think they will be happy for that. So actually, I've gotten a couple of messages from people being like, complain about it, but I've literally drawn probably like 3,000 um, paintings in the last 6 years or something, and I've only had like 2 or 3 complaints. So really, that's something that you shouldn't be afraid of. Like, really, you're the artist. So, oh yeah, Shutterstock has pictures. I think that's great. Shutterstock. So one thing is, credit the photographer, but otherwise you can go to Shutterstock. But really, I don't think there's anything to be afraid of. Just go for it. Like, you're the artist. As long as you credit them, it's fine. Anna says, I want to study digital painting like you because I bought a tablet a month ago and you're a master in digital portraits. Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. So hopefully I'm gonna be able to help you. So you can start out with this stuff, and I hate to plug myself and be like an advertisement, but you can sign up for the mentorship and kind of get with that. But if you don't have the money, it's totally okay. We can kind of like talk with the live streams. But the only problem is with the live streams, there's a lot of questions, and I can't really focus on just one person. But you guys send me all your work, and I'm here to answer your questions. I'm really here to help you with anything you want me to. So let me real quick do a little critique. And Pigs Bay. Mirage says thank you though. Oh, you're welcome, baby. Pigs Bay. Okay, that's a good website, I guess. So really, Christine did a great job. She's really good with. I feel that her proportions are perfect. Just one thing that you need to focus more on, and beginners always has a problem with that, is really just structure and planes. So I've talked about this before, but let me mention it for 1,000 times. Planes of the head. So Christine, I want you to actually download these planes of the head, and you need to be looking for the original. So there's a lot of different things, but this is the one that you're looking for. So I want you to download this reference and always keep it on the side. You know, you can kind of like find different angles. Like for example, this one, it's amazing because half of the head is kind of like super broken down, and then the other side is kind of like more, it has more structure. So Christine, I want you to download this. Wait, Anna says, I drew almost nothing for 6 years, so I need to learn again. Those who say that you not drink talent, they lie. I forgot everything. Oh yeah, that's a real bummer, man. Like I know that because it's kind of like the same with the gym. Like if you stop going to the gym, you know, you're gonna lose all your muscles. So definitely don't stop. But you know, you got pretty good skill. I feel like if you get into digital painting in like 1 year, you can get into it. The only problem is kind of like getting to know more about Photoshop and stuff. But this is what I'm here for. So, Christine, download this reference, and I really want you to apply these planes. I like how I'm going back and forth between people. I really want you to apply these planes into your studies. So, if you have the reference in here and you kind of keep this on the side, let me download this so I can show you. Um, Desktop. Because I see you're really good with the proportions, like the proportions are already there. But if you try to shade this, the problem is it looks great as a drawing, but for it to be a good painting, it really needs a lot more structure. Because what are you gonna shade in here? You know, that's why beginners have this beginner look. Is because they look because they have kind of like a good sketch, and then on top, you know what you're gonna do? You're just gonna do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and just a little bit of shading here, a little bit of shading there, and you know you're gonna be like, okay, that's the shading. But if you actually had that structure underneath, you were gonna know exactly what to shade. So because you've been drawing for a long time and you kind of have some understanding of the face, it looks good, you know. But if you don't have all of those planes in here, kind of like, you know, if you look at these planes in here, and Anna says exactly, losing your drawing muscles. Yeah, absolutely. So if you had all of these planes in here, actually you broke them down, you know, you were gonna know that you need to, and that's the worst breakdown I've ever seen. But if you actually take the time and break them down and look at how this looks and break down like the eyebrow, you were gonna know exactly how to shade this, right? Because it's so much different shading this than shading this, you know. Because when you look at this and you're still a beginner, again, you're gonna have this shading. But if you actually had that structure and you shade on top, you were gonna know, okay, there's gonna be a plane in here, there's gonna be a plane in here, and obviously it's gonna be lighter, you know, because this is the core shadow. And then there's gonna be another one in here, and then for the eyebrow, there's gonna be in here, in here, in here. You kind of like look, you actually try to do it in here with that rhythm line. You only need to push yourself to do it even more and kind of like break down all of the planes. So not only in this in your sketch, but also do it on top of the reference. So you get a reference, and I want you to actually looking at the planes of the head. And by the way, probably my mistake, but because I forgot to mention something. But download this, and I want you to actually break it down on top of the reference, you know. And a really tricky thing is that everybody has kind of like different proportions. So even though sometimes, you know, for example, some people have a really wider forehead, so this plane in here is going to be way wider than other people's. You know, this person in here has a really a shorter distance between the eyebrows. So that's why it's really useful to use it on top of references, because you start learning everybody's different proportions. Christine says, okay, great. I wasn't sure if I did that right, so glad I got to send it. Haha, I'll go over and add the planes. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like you did a really great sketch. Just treat it, again, more like a structure, you know, more. And even again, I've talked about this before with the hair. Don't try to draw the hair as, you know, really just a piece is a bunch of hair sticking together. The way I'll draw this is like anything else. I'll break it down, and I've talked about this, that it's not when you're first starting out, you're really looking for what I call fuckboy hair. So you're looking for hair that has more structure and you can actually break down, because this hair is gonna be kind of hard to paint and draw because it's really like it's soft and it doesn't have any structure. So some of the references for hair that you have to be looking for is let me show you. The one that I actually opened is really like that's better here. Like look how it has more structure, like it has planes. So if I was actually wanted to show you today how to break this down, but I won't have any time, but hopefully next time we can do it, is this here. Let me open up. Let's say you have the face in here. You have the hair. This here is gonna be more into planes. So you have a separate plane every time it changes the direction. So think about it as if it's like broken down in like you know, if you've ever seen any 3D models, you know, it's really just broken down in planes. So I'm thinking about really the form of the hair. You know, you can kind of see how I keep the same direction of the hair, you know, the same way it goes back and then it goes back into the ear, but I'm thinking about it in 3D space. I'm not thinking about, you know, there's gonna be hair, so I'm just gonna draw it like that. You know, look how I'm breaking this plane, you know, in here. This plane in here, how it's different from this one, you know, because actually there's like a plane going like that, and then there's one on the top, right? It's kind of like going like that. So every time it changes the plane, you need to show that in 3D space, and the way to do that is kind of like breaking it down, right? So this is kind of like something I want you to focus more on, Christine, is looking for better hair references, and again, look for more like fuckboy hair, kind of like longer male hair, you know, because, and by the way, I forgot to mention that when you're first starting out with doing studies, you always need to find first male references, because males really have a stronger structure and it's going to be easier for you to kind of break down the form. So you can kind of see how in here where the hair kind of gets shorter, it's going to be a lot harder for me to actually find that structure, because, you know, with short hair, like all you can do is kind of like this. But in here, it's actually it's gonna be easier for you to study hair, right? So I'm breaking it down in bigger planes, and then after I'm done with that, I can actually like draw little pieces of hair, kind of like going in here and kind of like going like that, right? So that's kind of like the main critique I have for you on the hair. And then you know, the planes, kind of breaking it down, and really Christine, don't spend so much time. I've told this to Joshua, I think, is don't think about, oh no, it was actually Darren. Don't think about his lines as something beautiful in the way that you're gonna finish this painting. You know, really, this is a study, so I want you to think about these lines as really structural lines. So they don't have to be, I mean, do stay clean, but you see how when you were drawing on top of the reference, you were using a line to really show where the plane is. You know, that's the way to go, is you're putting this line because you want to show that there's a plane in here, there's another plane in here, and there's a plane in here. You're not putting this line, and then when you started drawing on your own, you did a line in here because it looks beautiful. You know, you were like, let me just put this line because I know there's the jaw line and it just looks, you know, it looks better. Instead, I want you to think about lines as really just marking where the plane is gonna be. You're really just doing like a structural drawing, like a Google Maps sketch. You know, you're kind of like breaking down, when I get to painting, you know, this is where I have to paint the planes. You know, this is something that a lot of beginners don't understand, but I swear if you understand this and you learn this, and the bad thing is that you can only learn this through practice. You know, as much as I'm explaining this to you, the only way to do it is sit down and do structural sketches. But I swear, if you understand this, it's gonna unlock all of everything that you don't understand, like how to really create a more beautiful painting. Because right now, you're not painting a face, you're painting something that you think looks like a face, you know? For example, this lip in here, because you don't understand the structure and you're just trying to make a lip, you're actually making something that's uglier than a lip because it doesn't have the structure, right? So I want you to really think about, you know, for example, don't think about this as just the lip. Think about it as planes. So if you had a plane in here and another plane in here and another plane in here, another plane, right? It's all different planes. So I'll have one in here, one in here, right? You have all of these different planes, and I really want you to think about it. This is what I'm seeing when I'm looking at. Actually, this looks really goofy, but this is what I want you to think about when you're looking at the reference. I don't want you to just see lips. You know, you're looking at the reference and you're like, okay, there's lips in here, so I'm just gonna draw lips. You know, this is not lips. This is not lips. Lips are actually just planes. You know, you have lips, you have planes that go into each other. You know, this is what lips really look like, because that is the structure of a lip. That is the representation of the lip, but it's actually not the lip. And when you get to painting, you actually are gonna have a lot of struggle with the painting, because you're gonna think, okay, so those are lips, so I'm just gonna, you know, what can I shade? Like, you don't really, when you draw lips like that, or you draw anything like that, you don't know how to shade it. You know how to push it forward, because you don't really understand where the planes are. Like, what can you shade in here? Like, there's only one thing to shade. You can just do this and then just do this, right? But in here, when you actually have the planes, you can actually think about, okay, so this plane is actually, if the light is coming from here, this plane is gonna be darker. It's gonna be, actually it's gonna be the darkest. There's gonna be a little lighter. It's gonna be darker, and then this one is actually gonna be lighter because the lighting is coming from here, and then there's gonna be a drop shadow kind of like coming from this one. You know, it's just a lot more complex, and it allows you to paint, because really our ultimate goal is to get to painting. It's not just to stick to drawing. So really think about this, the things that I explained. But again, don't overthink it. I'm sorry, I kind of get into these weird rants that don't really make a lot of sense, but I swear in my head they do. In my head they do make sense. So keep going with the portraits. Follow your schedule. I want you to send me your work on Saturday, and then on Sunday I'm gonna give you critique on Sunday, Christine. So thank you so much to everybody, man. I hope that was useful. That was a really interesting live stream. I really appreciate you guys. So to everybody, make sure you send me your artwork. I'm gonna check out that thing with WeTransfer. I'm gonna try to actually make the painting files longer, maybe like an hour or two, and I'm gonna find a way to send them to you. So thank you so much for joining. Make sure you send me your artwork. Make sure you practice. Really appreciate you. And I'm gonna talk to you next week, bitch. Have a great week, guys. Peace.